I would like to welcome you all at our virtual Transport Week 2021. Welcome from Gdynia with sun, as you can see. Let me introduce firstly our co-moderator, Dr. Dorota Książkiewicz, who is the assistant professor at the Department of Transport, Policy and Economic Integration from University of Gdańsk. Dorota will co-moderate this event with me today.
Yes, thank you, Bogdan. Thank you for the introduction and for the invitation, of course. And let me also introduce you. This is Mr. Bogdan Ołdakowski, who is the CEO of Actia Forum, and of course this is the main host of today's Transport Week 2021 event. So welcome, and let's start.
Thank you, Dorota. But we are not alone today. In fact, our host of today is Ms. Katarzyna Gruszecka-Spychała, Deputy Mayor of Gdynia. Welcome.
Morning.
Thank you for hosting us today.
And thank you so much for having me here with you. I'm very pleased.
Thank you.
Mrs. Mayor, so let's start with something that I find really impressive. Because according to the prestigious FDI Global Cities of the Future 2021 rank, Gdynia is the second most prospective rising city in the world for foreign direct investments. And I was delighted to find out that this success is due to the high economic potential and good conditions for business development, good quality of life as well. So I would like to ask you, how do you feel governing such a city, and what are the main challenges to make the city so attractive?
How do I feel? I should say it's very exciting, extremely exciting and really challenging, because nothing is easy, especially now during the pandemic year that has changed everything, and the world simply looks different than it used to a year ago. I guess that the answer for the most question is to achieve the highest possible quality of life. And whatever you do, you need to think about this quality of life. In order to have it, you need to support business. I mean both entrepreneurs and investors, and you need to support them at every stage of the business activities.
It's great. It's very impressive. Also, we meet today at a very interesting place. This studio is located in a very interesting building constructors park in Pomeranian Science and Technology Park. And I wonder if you can tell us a few words about this place and why is it so special?
My great pleasure, because it is one of my favorite places all over the city. Formerly, it is part of the biggest science and technology park in Poland. I mean Gdynia Pomeranian Science and Technology Park. And this infrastructure here mainly serves as a base for development activities for this science and technology park located in Gdynia, and another one which is located in Gdańsk. This consists of some specially created spaces, like, for example, lab spaces or development prototype spaces. It's all dedicated to young entrepreneurs who can create businesses from the very beginning, from the conception to the ready product.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much for this nice words about this place. I really think it's very impressive. Okay, so we also have a very active YouTube channel with this event today. So I wonder if you would like to say a few words to our viewers on YouTube channel.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. It's really very nice to be able to say some words. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to welcome you at the 10th edition of Transport Week 2021 conference. We've been waiting for this event for 2 years, as the 2020 edition did not take place due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm glad that despite the continuing difficulties, we are still able to meet in Gdynia in such an outstanding company, maritime experts, practitioners, and enthusiasts, who are always so important. There is no need to convince anyone of the importance of this industry to the city of Gdynia. Our city owes its dynamic development to the port, and together with it, it has become a window to the world. In the past years, the main topic of the conference were infrastructure projects. However, this year's conference dominating subject is the impact of COVID-19 on the maritime industry. Current situation results in rise and dynamic development of digitalization, which has become an important aspect of economic and social life in the city of Gdynia and worldwide. I am pleased that this topic will be raised at this year's conference. Gdynia, as an open and modern city with strong and established traditional industries, supports the IT and R&D industries equally. The process of digitalization and artificial intelligence implementation perfectly fit into the strategy of Gdynia's development. Ladies and gentlemen, my hope is that we all benefit greatly from the experience gathered here, and that it will also be an inspiration to the other sectors of the economy. I wish everyone a successful and fruitful conference. Thank you and have a good time.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor, for those words of introduction. We are very pleased that you could join us today and comment on this situation that we are in at the moment. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, it has been always a pleasure to be in Gdynia, in fact, and we have been organizing this event for years in Gdynia, and you are very right that last year we couldn't do it. This year we decided to do it virtually, but I hope that next year we could meet in real world. And you are very right that we will be talking about impact of COVID as well as the container market development in the Polish ports and the Baltic ports. And also we would talk about digitalization processes that affect and impact the operations of the port business. So Mrs. Mayor, thank you very much for being with us. And as I said, I hope we could meet in real world next year.
I simply can't wait.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is a very impressive movie from Gdynia. Well, let me now thank our partners of Transport Week this year. I would like to express our appreciation for City of Gdynia, but we have more partners. I would like to thank our strategic partners, Port of Gdynia Authority, Pomeranian Science and Technology Park in Gdynia, where we are here today, DCT Gdańsk for sponsoring this event. A warm thanks to Namiary, Morze, Handel that organized a tomorrow webinar and its partners, Loconi, Unifeeder, Necto, MAG and STBU. Thank you very much for all supporters of our virtual Transport Week 2021. Dorota, I think now is your turn to moderate next sessions. Please.
Yes, thank you. So let me start with presenting the agenda, what's in stock for us today. The agenda of our discussion, we will start with a description of the current state of the container market in the Baltic and beyond. And this issue will be presented by Mrs. Monika Rozmarynowska-Mrozek, the consulting projects leader in Actia Forum. We will follow that with a discussion, a question and answer session in our YouTube chat box. This will be followed by another guest that will be Mr. Marcin Kamola, Communication and Sales Support Manager of DCT Gdańsk, and this will be about DCT Gdańsk expansion plans and vision until 2030. So we will of course follow that with comments and questions again. And the last part of this session would be a discussion panel where we will talk about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on container terminal operations. And here our guests, Mrs. Violeta Hołomej, Chief Operational Officer of Gdynia Container Terminal, Mr. Marek Prażmak of Port of Szczecin, Świnoujście, and Mr. Marcin Kamola, Communication and Sales Support of DCT, will be joining us for this discussion. So this is the main plan of our discussion panel.
Yes, thank you very much for introduction to our program. And I think it's again your turn to introduce our speakers.
Oh, yes, of course, of course. So let's move to our first speaker, Mrs. Monika Rozmarynowska-Mrozek, the consulting projects leader in Actia Forum. We are very much pleased to give you the voice now and see the description of the current state of container market in the Baltic and beyond. Please join us now.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Monika Rozmarynowska-Mrozek. I'm representing Actia Forum, the organizer of this event. And I will present some key figures and facts concerning European, Baltic and Polish container markets during 2020. Okay, I will try to share my screen. Okay, I cannot share the screen. Okay. Okay, now it works. Okay, okay. I hope everyone can see it. Okay, so a little bit about our company. We are specializing in consulting services. Our portfolio of our company includes over 100 analyses and reports. Among our clients are numerous of companies, institutions, and organizations, mainly from Baltic Sea region. So now let's start with the presentations. And let's start with top 10 European container ports in 2020. Last year, the top 10, European top 10, handled 65.3 million TEUs. Almost all these top 10 container ports noted drops in container volumes. And the drop for total top 10, it was minus 1.7%. The one part which is standing out of this top 10 is Geotaura with plus 25%, but this is connected with the Geotaura began to grow in strength when in 2019 the main container terminal was sold to a Mediterranean shipping company. Okay, and now let's say a little more about Baltic Sea region. Here we can see container turnover in Baltic countries. In 2020, the Baltic countries totally handled 10.8 million TEUs. It was decreased at the level of 4.4%. Here, as we can see, the Baltic leader in container volumes is Poland. Now, top 10 Baltic container ports. In 2020, top 10 Baltic container ports handled 8.8 million TEUs, and it was minus 4.3%, comparing to the 2019. And similarly as top 10 European ports, almost all Baltic ports noted drops. However, slight increases were noted in Port of Gdynia, Port of Göteborg, and two-digit growth in Port of Arcus. Now, a little bit about Polish container, about container turnover in Polish ports. In 2020, there was drop at the level of 5.3% to 2.9 million TEUs. As I said before, Gdynia noted a slight increase at the level of almost 1%. Port of Szczecin-Świnoujście also noted even a two-digit growth. However, the volumes in Port of Szczecin and Świnoujście are much lower than in Gdynia and Gdańsk. And Gdańsk noted a drop at the level of 7.2%. In 2020, in the Polish ports, there were a first drop since 2015. But in 2020, the drop was not so high as in the 2015. So as we can see, the year wasn't so bad as everyone could expect it, probably at the beginning of the pandemic. Now, a containerized cargo turnover in Polish ports, but in terms of 1,000 tons. And this is a total turnover in Polish ports. And in terms of 1,000 tons, there was drop at the level of 6.2%. And in all Polish ports, container turnover was at the level of 21.6 million tons of containerized cargo. And here a little bit about last year in months. So here we have the statistics of containerized cargo in 1,000 tons in Polish ports from January to December, comparing the year of 2019 and 2020. As we can see, the beginning of the year, January and February, was quite promising because year to year, in January there was increase of 7.3%, and in February even a 21% increase. However, once the pandemic started to develop, the cargo started to decrease. So from March to June, there were quite high drops in container volumes in tons. Some recovery was visible in July and August. Then again, drops in September, October, a slight increase in November, and again a drop at the level of 8.5% in December. Now I would like to show some data about trade between Poland and China. Here we can see the total trade, not only the trade suitable for for containers, but the total, and this is all import plus export. And here also some view of the year 2020 comparing to 2019. And what's interesting, the trade between Poland and China increased. In volumes, it was 29% to 7.1 million tons. In the case of value, it also increased by 13% to 26.2 billion euros. And here we can see that in March and April, the trade slowed down, or even in March a little bit decreased. However, in further months, from May to December, the trade increased year on year. And the same was in the case of value and volumes. Okay. And now, just not to bore you with so many numbers and bars, and now some maps. Here we can see the network of container services within North Europe and Baltic. We can see quite dense network of feeder services, and quite a number of container ships operators present in this region. And here the European intermodal trains map. The most dense network is in Germany, Poland, and also in the southern Sweden. Here the three direct ocean services from China, East Asia to and from Baltic Sea region. And as we can see, we now have two direct services to Gdańsk and one to Göteborg and Orcus. And last but not least, I want to say a little bit more about ocean container spot freight rates, because I think nowadays it is quite an interesting subject. Because as we probably most of us know, at the turn of November and December 2020, the tempo of increase of container spot freight rates has accelerated dramatically, and the rates reached extremely high levels in January this year. According to Freightos Baltic Index, in the end of February this year, the prices on China, East Asia to North Europe routes were ranging from about $7.6 thousand to $10.6 thousand per 40-foot container. The median price was at the level of $8.3 thousand per FEU, and this median price at the end of February was over 400% higher than in the same time in the previous year. In November, the fast increase of demand after months of black sailings, congestion at US ports resulted in severe storage of empty containers in Asian origin ports. Around the world, there are about 180 million of containers, but nowadays they are actually in a wrong place. A return of containers to Asia don't follow up by the demand for deliveries from Asia. And what makes the matter worse, orders for new containers were largely cancelled during the first half of 2020, when almost all the world went into lockdown. And as the result, all that situation made the shipping cost skyrocket. But the different situation presents on opposite direction, North Europe to China, East Asia. Export freight rates are much lower than the import rates. Some fluctuations during the 2020 were visible, but not very spectacular as it was in the case of import spot freight rates. At the end of February this year, the median price of export freight rates was at the level of almost $1.5 thousand per 40-foot container. And as we can see, these export freight rates are over 5 times lower than the import spot freight rates nowadays. And some short summary, some 2020 key numbers. 65.3 million TEUs were handled in top 10 European container ports in 2020. It was minus 1.7%. 10.8 million TEUs were handled in Baltic container ports, minus 4.4%. 8.8 million TEUs was handled in top 10 Baltic container ports, minus 4.3%. 2.9 million TEUs was handled in Polish ports, minus 4.3%. 21.6 million tons of containerized cargo was handled in Polish ports. It was minus 6.2%. 7.1 million tons of total trade between Poland and China. It was plus 29%. And 26.2 billion euros, it was the value of total trade between Poland and China in 2020. And it was plus 13% comparing to the 2019. Okay, thank you very much. It is all for my side, so thank you.
The comments that you provided, it was very interesting. Just summing up, I think we can say that we only experienced a moderate decrease in container market, in container turnover in the ports of the region, and we have to consider that this was a year when we had those problems with lockdowns and shutting down production in southeastern countries. So these were the major problems in the first part of the year, and I think that they might have resulted in a much more decreases in the business. However, we still experienced only some moderate decrease, which is, I think, a good sign. And also, I think that the trade between China and Poland, the increase that you showed, is a very positive sign here. So I hope we can expect this tendency to continue in the future. But my question is, can you just, looking into the data,
Actually, yes, I think that the second part of the year 2020 was some kind of recovery, and I think that this year could be a good year. In the view that still we have the pandemic, I think it will be not so bad year.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the conclusions. I don't know if we have any questions coming up from chat box. Oh yes, I can see one. The question is, does the total Poland-China trade figures cover the volume transshipped by Trans-Siberian Railway line? Okay, so that's the question.
Yes, I think yes, because it is a total trade. So so not only a maritime trade, but total trades transported by all ways of transport.
Thank you so much for this explanation. Are there any more questions? Okay. I think we don't have any more questions as for now. So thank you so much for this interesting presentation. And I think we'll move on to our next speaker. The DCT Gdańsk and its expansion plans and vision of expansion for 2030. Let's invite Mr. Marcin Kamola to join us now and talk about DCT vision.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Am I here? Do you hear me and do you see me now?
Yes, we can see you and hear you very well.
Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation of our company to this event. Very excited to be here. In the agenda, you've probably seen that it could be Mr. Dominik Landa, our commercial director, to be here, but due to some reasons and duties, he had to give me this opportunity to talk a little bit about our company and how we see ourselves now and what's the vision of the company. The vision of the company is that we are the Baltic Hub and we want to be the Baltic Hub. Somewhere in the beginning of the very beginning of the company, when it was 2004, 2005, 2006, when the company was first on the paper, then we started changing the beach actually from the beach into a container terminal. We thought that this will not be just a container terminal. This will be a hub, and then we understood that it will not be just a hub for Poland. This will be the Baltic hub, the hub for Central and Eastern Europe. Accessing the Central European countries and the Baltic Sea countries into one area that we call the Baltic Sea region, because we believe that Czech Republic, Slovakia, Belarus, these are the countries that are the Baltic countries, but they just don't had the proper access to the Baltic Sea. So actually, what happened last time? What happened last year? What happened 2 years ago? So 2 years ago, everyone in Europe was just planning how the economy will be developing, or maybe that we are approaching some kind of a slowdown in the economy, like it happens. But still, Poland was developing very fast, 4.3% GDP growth 2019. So very, very good. But then 2020 came, and the first 2 months were perfect. But then it started the perfect storm. And finally, what was good, what we understood as a very good thing, that Poland was one of the countries that was least affected in all this in the storm. Maybe because of our economy that is so diverse, that combined of so many industries that were not so much affected by the slowdown. So just if we watch a little bit south from Poland, and we see the economies of our neighbors that are very much automotive business driven, and it was one of the businesses that we've seen that when people are afraid of losing. Yeah. Yes. Sure. Yes, sure. Just a second, I'm trying to
okay.
share the screen. Is it better now? So we are. What was the thing that we understood as a good one, that Polish economy actually did not lose so much as the rest of Europe did, and so what was the effect is that we retained position of the port of Gdańsk, and this Gdańsk is actually almost the sole container operator in the port of Gdańsk. So we retained the top 15 position, although just like in the previous presentation, you have heard that both largest container ports in the Baltic Sea, so St. Petersburg in Russia and Gdańsk, lost a little bit in their volumes, but still not as much as other ports handling between 2 and 3 million TEUs in Europe. That's also some kind of summary of what Ms. Monika said in her presentation. But I wanted to add one point, that although DCT lost few percent of the market and few percent of the volumes, we actually grew 4% in the local cargo. And local cargo, we understand that's the Polish economy, and what was also the major driver of our growth in 2020, it was cargo coming from Czech Republic. So that's something that we were always talking, that we would like to change the port of Gdańsk into a Baltic hub and into a hub for the countries of Central Eastern Europe. And actually it started, and we are now on the way to retain it and help this growth grow faster. Just a summary, what's happening on the water side, from 2 connections. First is 2M service from Far East, actually from Korea, China, Malaysia to Gdańsk. Very important, and we also say there is only one actually call before the vessel arrives to Gdańsk, and that's Bremerhaven. And then in Gdańsk, the vessel stays and makes more than 10,000 moves per single call. So that's this call, and the second one also now connecting us with Korea, also making up more than 10,000 moves per single call, makes us the port when the vessels are really making the most of the move count wherever they call in Europe. So that's the reason why they come here. If they come here, they just want to stay here and make as many moves as possible, just to utilize capacity of our port as much as possible. Also, what happened in the pandemic time, when everyone was searching for connections to reach out to Europe faster and easier, and when we also found that the rates are skyrocketing, the ideas from the 2019 that were just an ideas actually became reality, and the connection that we have here coming from Korea, then through Russia, and then back to Poland, started from one route a month until now that they are using this route 3 times a week. So this is also showing that the customers in Poland, customers in Europe, are looking for different solutions, and the port is not the place that we always be out of this game. Thanks to Maersk Line, we are also in the game when watching the world of intercontinental connections and not only sea routings. So why we are a regional hub? Because we are a hub port with a real unique location, with regular feeder and short sea connections to most of the Baltic and North Sea ports. We are still waiting for some other destinations on the Baltic Sea to emerge, but of course, most of what you see on the map is actually not much more can we get. 35% of rail, so that's a high share. We are as a rail terminal, we are in the top 10 of rail terminals in Europe. So this is also something that should be mentioned, that if we are top 15 in ports, but we are top 10 in terminals, so not only ports but also terminals. So that's so showing that's a big railway railway place with 500 block trains served per month, connected to almost every intermodal terminal in Poland, and connected with Czech Republic, with trains that we are planning to start to Slovakia, and connections to Belarus and China through Malashevice, and also through St. Petersburg, and to connect with connection to Ukraine via Zamość that also started running not many weeks ago. So that's from starting from Poland and emerging into largest place in Poland, and now developing and offering the cost benefit, because in logistics only that's the cost is driver to other countries. This was something that we were showing to our customers in Czech Republic for many times, for many years, and they were saying that it's impossible that Gdańsk may be a gateway for us, because we have 12, 14, 15 connections daily to Hamburg, to Bremerhaven, to North Sea ports. Nobody will use it. But then it was 2017 when the first train started, and the customers started doing what they should do. So they started adding the cost and adding the kilometers, and actually they found that maybe the city was right. When we open the map, when we start watching what's on the map, we see that Gdańsk is the shortest land distance to the sea from certain parts of Slovakia and Czech Republic, and that was the reason when the volume started growing, and now it's growing almost 100% annually. So that's of course we are starting from a very small base, but this is also showing that when you start reaching out to the customers and showing that the benefit is there, and you just need to use your calculator, and then you start getting with your costs down, and then you are starting using different port. And that was the work we did, and I suppose that's a big success. Why we are also successful? Because this was the wealth of this place was, of course, the location on the water side, but it was the beginning, and now the wealth of this place is also the location on the land side, with one logistics park that is currently running, second one under construction, and other logistics park in the vicinity of 10 kilometers that help the customers to reach out to their customers easily, without any restrictions on the infrastructure side, and there will be less restrictions when all the investment is finished. So this is a place perfect for business and perfect for development. And you heard a lot about investment like Northvolt. So the car battery industry that is coming to Gdańsk also to be our neighbor. And it's not located just because there is land here in the port, but it's located here because this is the port and the container terminal here, enabling them to link to their customers and their contractors and their sourcing. So what we reached now, we reached to the terminal with 2 berths, 17-meter draft, with current capacity 3 million TEU. That will be 3.25 million in 2021. And still developing with by the end of this year with 7 tracks, with 5 kilometers of tracks, and this just 2021 and 2022, and that's these are only some preparations to, or I would call it finalization of some projects that we are currently doing. So we were expanding the yard. We've added additional ground slots, so that's capacity on the yard side with new electric rubber tire gantries. Now we are preparing additional yard, and we have leased 6.5 hectares of land that we want to develop until 2023, and this will be land used for storage of containers, for extending our break bulk and warehousing capacity, and for some spaces for office also, because this is a place that needs also just an office space and place for people, as we are employing almost 1,000 people here on this site. What was also done until 2020, we have been expanding the yard by 3 ship-to-shore cranes. The major project now is the railhead expansion, with that we were buying 3 rail-mounted gantries. We have the 4th one in pipeline. We have started the project of extending our tracks until up to 7 tracks, each of them 750-meter long, up almost to double the capacity of this railway siding, because it's utilized up to its limits now. The port is also expanding the access to the siding. You have those of you that reach out to the cities from time to time, you have seen that we have actually now 2 tracks, and we are now preparing to use them both in a short time. We've been investing a lot into automation of the processes, and it's some kind of a automation laboratory that we are building now. So vehicle booking system, that's one thing. Automated gate processes, OCR cameras on gates, both gates, rail and road, new access road to the terminal. That's all to be more onto handlings and less onto manual processes. And that's a small laboratory that we'll be expanding. The next step is trying to automate maybe 1 or 2 cranes, just to start learning how to work in automated terminal, because nobody knows how the expansions in the future will look like, and whether will be still manual, semi-manual, automated terminal. This is a very great thinking to be done, and great planning to be done. Additional tracks. That's just I think that we want to really show that's something that is giving they will give a large change, because as we are saying that we want to double the capacity of this siding, so doubling the capacity is actually reaching above 1 million TEU capacity on rail. That's and when you go to the data, you will see that the largest rail terminals in Europe, this will be in Bremerhaven or in Felixstowe. These are the 1 million TEU rail terminals. So we are trying to get to the top 3 of rail terminals in Europe. So this is something that's very exciting for us, because when everyone is talking about sustainability, we are doing sustainability. We are investing in sustainable modes of transport. We are buying green electric energy, just to help all these that want to calculate their carbon footprint, to do it properly, and to have partners that understand what sustainability is, and what sustainability is giving to the world and to the logistics chains. So we are now also in a major process of the changing of the port of Gdańsk, and this is upgrade of the network, upgrade of the railway station. So after 2023, this will be a completely different port. Someone who came here 10 years ago and will be in 2023 will see a completely different port, prepared for 22nd century, I suppose, on the land side, and prepared also on the water side, because there's also a lot of investment. Just to point that Port of Gdańsk is a deep sea hub, and is not even thinking about losing this position to its competitors, with some big infrastructure and some small infrastructure that is helping to our contractors, like public parkings for trucks, and all the road infrastructure that is easing access, and rail access, and rail infrastructure is easing access to the terminal, and making this time when the cargo is not moving as short as possible, because nobody wants to lose time. So the vision is that we want to be the largest container terminal in the Baltic, and this is not the position that we want to lose in any time. Yes, we have proved that we are capable of handling the biggest ships in the world, and this was also think we want to be. We want also to be still the most cost-effective hub for the Baltic region, and we don't want to stop growing, because was the motto of the terminal is to provide the most competitive offer to the fastest growing region in Europe. We want to be the Baltic hub. I suppose you wanted also to hear a little bit more about what we plan up to 2030, but these are the things that it's not time for saying. Maybe in a future when we are ready and everyone is ready to talk more, we will be able to talk more about our expansion, but that is never planned to be stopped. And just how we see ourselves in the winter time, finally the snow is off, but that was also the harsh time for us. The terminal is here and waiting for the customers. You can see on the picture that's the railway siding works were continuing even when the frost was below -10. So we are always planning and always working for our customers to be ready for them and for their cargo. So thank you for being able to present the short presentation about us. I hope that it was a little bit interesting for you and gave some insight to how we see us and how we see the market.
Insight into this strategy, quite interesting to see that our Port of Gdańsk obviously is right in the middle of the main trends, the port trends that we see around the world, which is process automation, sustainability, and I guess the development of logistic functions inside the port area. So these are the main fields I think we find in modern ports strategies these days. Thank you so much. I also have one question as to the current situation, maybe not so much as to the vision, but to the problems that we face today, because when we mentioned this congestion problems in the previous speech that we heard today, I would like to ask you if you do experience problems related to the delays in most liner services that we hear about so much these days. Well, obviously, main huge hubs, container ports in the world are very much congested at the moment, and this also results in this changing of schedules of liner services. Do you have any problems with that at the moment?
We are, when you look on the shipping services that are reaching out to Gdańsk, we are at the end of each of them. So both from Maersk Line, MSC, and from Ocean Alliance. And of course, anytime there is any problem in the port before Gdańsk, we were feeling this very tough. And these were the lessons learned in the past, and we understood that when it was February and March 2020, and we understood that there may be problems with too many full containers, too many empty containers. We prepared all the procedures to not to let the terminal stop because of too much containers that could come here. So currently, when we hear about other ports that have too many empty containers, for example, on their stock, and nobody wants to take them out, we do not have such problems. We see what's happening when the vessels are omitting ports before Gdańsk because of some restrictions there. So we see that there's more restows that we make on the vessel. So we need to help other ports here, so to restore the containers on the vessel. We see that the vessels are coming sometimes a little bit earlier onto the Gdańsk, Bay of Gdańsk, because they had to omit some port, or they come some hours later because of something also happened. But we were really afraid what would happen, and it was in 2020. But now we see that all the procedures that we have set in cooperation with shipping lines made us a little bit in in a better position. Of course, then the winter came, and just like it happens in Northern Europe, there's sometimes more wind, sometimes more snow. So this we had our own congestion problems, but it was only the winter problems, not the COVID problems.
Okay, thank you so much for this explanation. Of course, we hope that there will be no congestion in the port of Gdańsk whatsoever, and the operations will always go smooth. Let's move to other questions. Do we have any questions in the chat box? I think I can see some. Let's take a look. No.
Well, if not,
okay.
maybe I can have one.
Sure, you're welcome.
Yes, please.
Yes, there are lots of talk about the further expansion of DCT Gdańsk, and I know that you are well advanced in such planning. And can you tell us about the time schedule of T3 terminal? When we can expect the next stage of the development to be operational? If you can disclose this information for us.
Unfortunately, I cannot disclose it because the Port of Gdańsk is now under, and there is a tender in the Port of Gdańsk, and we cannot tell anything about our planning for the future until anything is disclosed publicly.
I understand. Okay.
Okay, so thank you very much for all the information. I can't see any more questions in the chat, so I think we can now move to our next part of our panel, to the part about discussion of the influence of COVID-19 pandemic on container operations, on container terminal operations. Let's take a look at the inside of what the recovery may look like, and how soon we can expect this recovery to begin. So let me ask, of course, Marcin, please stay with us, and we will ask another panelist to join us, Mrs. Violetta Hołomej, Chief Operational Officer of Gdynia Container Terminal, and Mr. Marek Prażmak from Port of Szczecin. Can you please join us now for our panel? Yes, good morning. Thank you so much.
2021. Last year was a COVID year. At the beginning of the year, the maritime container market has experienced a situation not observed for a long time, while freight rates have been at the low level. As Ms. Monika said at the beginning of the transport week, they in a once I would say doubled. It was because of the industrial production in the world's factory in China came to a standstill because of a virus. As a result, after a quarter, and we as a Gdynia Container Terminal have observed it at the beginning of the March, ship owners began sending warnings to the market that they had nothing to ship. European ports just stopped. And we as a GCT also have a pandemic effect as from the beginning of the second quarter of the last year, in terms of the weekend the exchange of the goods. And after the second quarter, in the second half of the year, the demand was increased. As I said, the first half of the 2020 was definitely weaker in terms of the container turnover. We used the time to prepare properly for the pandemic effects. With the beginning of the pandemic outbreak, the society were feared of the infection, and this also affected our workers. As an organization, we have implemented rules to increase the work safety, to keep them safe in the epidemic sense. I mean, to maintain social distance, disinfection, remote working where in the areas where it was possible. Taking these actions at an early stage of the epidemic outbreak enabled us to ensure appropriate sanitary regime within our workplace, and thus we were able to maintain continuity on our operation, as well as increasing employees' sense of security. Hello? Because I have got some problems, I can hear some noises. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Hello? Hello? I can see many noises. I can't hear anything because just only many noises. Yes, yes, I get that technical problem.
Things will get better with in time with these technical things. And I would also ask Mr. Marek Prażmak to tell us about how the situation after COVID, or we're still inside the pandemic, so the current situation in the port of Szczecin-Świnoujście looks like. Yes, please.
Well, the port of Szczecin-Świnoujście fortunately went through the pandemic with no bigger problems. What Mrs. Violeta said before, there were also these sanitary protection measures taken very quickly. Employees were equipped with these protection devices, with masks and gloves. And there is yes, of course, there is a container terminal in the port of Szczecin, which is pretty small and actually noted increase in turnover. It's handling a local market with turnover of around 80,000 TEUs annually. And it's a typical feeder terminal. So that wasn't a big problem for the container operation. There is a the biggest in Poland ferry terminal in the port of Świnoujście, which is handling ferries between Poland and Sweden took another system. They were not under the lockdown. They rather tried to develop the natural resistance to the pandemic. So the port authority was a little bit afraid of this traffic, which was unrestricted all the time between Poland and Sweden. So there were additional measures on a ferry terminal, measuring of the body temperature of passengers, reducing contacts between people. But in the end, yes, there were some people sick. Apparently, there was the pandemic didn't have such severe effect on the people working outdoors. The virus does not spread so easily when you are in open space. It spreads faster when you are in closed areas, in offices. So we had more COVID cases in a closed in this office part of the employees than among the stevedores or among the people working with the ships or handling ships.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this insight. And the same question to Marcin Komola. Please, can you tell us what are the expectations about container traffic and container operations in the port of Gdańsk?
So the expectations on the market itself are that the market will start growing again, and we see that actually from August last year, the market is not it's maybe not developing as fast as it was in the past, but it's not declining. What we did on the operational side, we actually, the first communication to our employees was on the 31st of January 2020. So it was 1 month before we had the first COVID infected person in Poland. And actually, it was 4th of March, as I remember. It was the first person that was confirmed. So we were preparing very deeply to this, to cope with this, because if you are employing 1,000 people and you are some kind of blocked because of COVID, it would be a disaster not only for the company but also for the logistics chains. As you have almost 200,000 TEU every month here in the terminal, so it may really affect what's going on the market. So we now we are continuing some processes we started last year. So these are the sanitary breaks. It is affecting a little bit mainly the trucking companies that are coming to the city, because we extended the break between the shifts so people can come and leave the terminal without mixing too much with each other. We are sanitizing everything everywhere just to remain operationally. Of course, we had people infected, we had people on quarantines, but everything was prepared on such level that I suppose nobody found it as a complication for us and for themselves.
I hope we can now resolve all technical problems and issues and hear about the plans, the forecast probably from the Gdynia container terminal.
We are expecting 2021 and the level in terms of throughput as 2020. We are working in a COVID circumstances, so as well as DCT Gdańsk, we are implemented sanitary breaks and so on, which is affected maybe sometimes truck time service, but I think that our turnover will be similar to turnover of 2020.
Okay, thank you so much. We are running out of time, so there will be no more questions as to this panel. So thank you all for sharing the information with us about the current situations in the ports. And I think we can all be quite optimistic, in fact, because we can see some investments in our Polish ports, and the situation may not resolve very quickly, but we still hope that we will see some good figures for all the ports in coming years, in the coming months, in fact. So thank you all very much. I think this brings us to the end of our panel. And
yes. I think it's one of the conclusions from last year, from pandemic year, that the ports, the cargo sector had quite a good result. But at the other side, if you look at the passenger transport, cruise and ferries, the results were quite bad. So let's see how it will go this year. The expectation for containers, for cargo throughputs are quite optimistic. When it comes to cruise and passengers, we don't know. It very much depends on the restrictions. Dorota, thank you very much for perfect moderation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can see you have a lot of experience as an academic teacher.
Yes.
Also, thank you for keeping the time. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Our pleasure too. Well, yes, there is a time now for a break. We call it lunch break, so you can go to your kitchen and make a fast sandwiches or whatever, or salads. And we will be back at 12:30, and in meantime there will be also a movie, as I understand. So be with us in 30 minutes. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Budowa portu zewnętrznego praktycznie podwoi obecną powierzchnię zajmowaną przez terminale operacyjne w porcie Gdynia.
W przypadku takiej inwestycji kluczowa jest współpraca pomiędzy Zarządem Morskiego Portu, którego rolą jest stworzenie właściwych warunków, czy to w zakresie właściwego dostępu drogowego i kolejowego do portu. Z drugiej strony partner prywatny jest konieczny do zapewnienia sukcesu dla tego projektu. Tym partnerem prywatnym musi być światowej klasy operator, który będzie w stanie przyciągnąć do Gdyni ładunki.
Z tym projektem odniesie wiele innych korzyści dla innych przedsiębiorców, dla regionu i dla całego kraju.
Port zewnętrzny będzie miał fundamentalne znaczenie dla regionu i dla wszystkiego, co dzieje się w całym obrębie Bałtyku. Bez takiej inwestycji będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Göteborgiem, będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Kłajpedą. Musimy być coraz bardziej nowocześni, musimy umożliwiać dostęp najnowszym, największym statkom, jakie pływają po oceanach.
To jest przedsięwzięcie, które tak naprawdę otwiera nową historię w działalności portu w Gdyni. Teraz porty morskie są wielofunkcyjnym organizmem, który oprócz funkcji transportowych łączy w sobie funkcje przemysłowe, handlowe, logistyczne. Jest też stymulatorem rozwoju gospodarki całego kraju.
Jest to olbrzymia dźwignia dla przemysłu i też kolejna szansa rozwoju dla Gdyni.
Gdynia, jak wiadomo, jest portem o strategicznym znaczeniu dla gospodarki. Dzięki bardzo takiej silnej współpracy z Ministerstwem Funduszy i Polityki Regionalnej i oczywiście innymi ministerstwami udało się pozyskać finansowanie na infrastrukturę dostępową od strony morza.
Polityka proekologiczna, którą realizuje port Gdynia, również jest naprawdę godna podziwu. Polityka w ramach idei Green Portu, najnowocześniejszy na świecie i jednocześnie najbezpieczniejszy na świecie system nawigacji statków, który notabene jest również bardzo proekologiczny. To wszystko składa się na jedną całość i uzasadniało przyznanie nagrody dla portu Gdynia i dla jej sternika.
Przyjęcie pierwszego statku to jest mniej więcej 2028 rok.
Poprzez zbudowanie portu zewnętrznego Gdynia wróci do tej idei, do tej koncepcji, która przyświecała inżynierowi Wędzie i ministrowi Kwiatkowskiemu, że każdy statek, który wpłynie na Bałtyk, wpłynie również do portu Gdynia.
Budowa portu zewnętrznego praktycznie podwoi obecną powierzchnię zajmowaną przez terminale operacyjne w porcie Gdynia.
W przypadku takiej inwestycji kluczowa jest współpraca pomiędzy Zarządem Morskiego Portu, którego rolą jest stworzenie właściwych warunków, czy to w zakresie właściwego dostępu drogowego i kolejowego do portu. Z drugiej strony partner prywatny jest konieczny do zapewnienia sukcesu dla tego projektu. Tym partnerem prywatnym musi być światowej klasy operator, który będzie w stanie przyciągnąć do Gdyni ładunki.
Z tym projektem odniesie wiele innych korzyści dla innych przedsiębiorców, dla regionu i dla całego kraju.
Port zewnętrzny będzie miał fundamentalne znaczenie dla regionu i dla wszystkiego, co dzieje się w całym obrębie Bałtyku. Bez takiej inwestycji będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Göteborgiem, będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Kłajpedą. Musimy być coraz bardziej nowocześni, musimy umożliwiać dostęp najnowszym, największym statkom, jakie pływają po oceanach.
To jest przedsięwzięcie, które tak naprawdę otwiera nową historię w działalności portu w Gdyni. Teraz porty morskie są wielofunkcyjnym organizmem, który oprócz funkcji transportowych łączy w sobie funkcje przemysłowe, handlowe, logistyczne. Jest też stymulatorem rozwoju gospodarki całego kraju.
Jest to olbrzymia dźwignia dla przemysłu i też kolejna szansa rozwoju dla Gdyni.
Gdynia, jak wiadomo, jest portem o strategicznym znaczeniu dla gospodarki. Dzięki bardzo takiej silnej współpracy z Ministerstwem Funduszy i Polityki Regionalnej i oczywiście innymi ministerstwami udało się pozyskać finansowanie na infrastrukturę dostępową od strony morza.
Polityka proekologiczna, którą realizuje port Gdynia, również jest naprawdę godna podziwu. Polityka w ramach idei Green Portu, najnowocześniejszy na świecie i jednocześnie najbezpieczniejszy na świecie system nawigacji statków, który notabene jest również bardzo proekologiczny. To wszystko składa się na jedną całość i uzasadniało przyznanie nagrody dla portu Gdynia i dla jej sternika.
Przyjęcie pierwszego statku to jest mniej więcej 2028 rok.
Poprzez zbudowanie portu zewnętrznego Gdynia wróci do tej idei, do tej koncepcji, która przyświecała inżynierowi Wędzie i ministrowi Kwiatkowskiemu, że każdy statek, który wpłynie na Bałtyk, wpłynie również do portu Gdynia.
Budowa portu zewnętrznego praktycznie podwoi obecną powierzchnię zajmowaną przez terminale operacyjne w porcie Gdynia.
W przypadku takiej inwestycji kluczowa jest współpraca pomiędzy Zarządem Morskiego Portu, którego rolą jest stworzenie właściwych warunków, czy to w zakresie właściwego dostępu drogowego i kolejowego do portu. Z drugiej strony partner prywatny jest konieczny do zapewnienia sukcesu dla tego projektu. Tym partnerem prywatnym musi być światowej klasy operator, który będzie w stanie przyciągnąć do Gdyni ładunki.
Z tym projektem odniesie wiele innych korzyści dla innych przedsiębiorców, dla regionu i dla całego kraju.
Port zewnętrzny będzie miał fundamentalne znaczenie dla regionu i dla wszystkiego, co dzieje się w całym obrębie Bałtyku. Bez takiej inwestycji będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Göteborgiem, będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Kłajpedą. Musimy być coraz bardziej nowocześni, musimy umożliwiać dostęp najnowszym, największym statkom, jakie pływają po oceanach.
To jest przedsięwzięcie, które tak naprawdę otwiera nową historię w działalności portu w Gdyni. Teraz porty morskie są wielofunkcyjnym organizmem, który oprócz funkcji transportowych łączy w sobie funkcje przemysłowe, handlowe, logistyczne. Jest też stymulatorem rozwoju gospodarki całego kraju.
Jest to olbrzymia dźwignia dla przemysłu i też kolejna szansa rozwoju dla Gdyni.
Gdynia, jak wiadomo, jest portem o strategicznym znaczeniu dla gospodarki. Dzięki bardzo takiej silnej współpracy z Ministerstwem Funduszy i Polityki Regionalnej i oczywiście innymi ministerstwami udało się pozyskać finansowanie na infrastrukturę dostępową od strony morza.
Polityka proekologiczna, którą realizuje port Gdynia, również jest naprawdę godna podziwu. Polityka w ramach idei Green Portu, najnowocześniejszy na świecie i jednocześnie najbezpieczniejszy na świecie system nawigacji statków, który notabene jest również bardzo proekologiczny. To wszystko składa się na jedną całość i uzasadniało przyznanie nagrody dla portu Gdynia i dla jej sternika.
Przyjęcie pierwszego statku to jest mniej więcej 2028 rok.
Poprzez zbudowanie portu zewnętrznego Gdynia wróci do tej idei, do tej koncepcji, która przyświecała inżynierowi Wędzie i ministrowi Kwiatkowskiemu, że każdy statek, który wpłynie na Bałtyk, wpłynie również do portu Gdynia.
budowa portu zewnętrznego praktycznie podwoi obecną powierzchnię zajmowaną przez terminale operacyjne w porcie Gdynia.
W przypadku takiej inwestycji kluczowa jest współpraca pomiędzy Zarządem Morskiego Portu, którego rolą jest stworzenie właściwych warunków, czy to w zakresie właściwego dostępu drogowego i kolejowego do portu. Z drugiej strony partner prywatny jest konieczny do zapewnienia sukcesu dla tego projektu. Tym partnerem prywatnym musi być światowej klasy operator, który będzie w stanie przyciągnąć do Gdyni ładunki.
Z tym projektem odniesie wiele innych korzyści dla innych przedsiębiorców, dla regionu i dla całego kraju.
Port zewnętrzny będzie miał fundamentalne znaczenie dla regionu i dla wszystkiego, co dzieje się w całym obrębie Bałtyku. Bez takiej inwestycji będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Göteborgiem, będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Kłajpedą. Musimy być coraz bardziej nowocześni, musimy umożliwiać dostęp najnowszym, największym statkom, jakie pływają po oceanach.
To jest przedsięwzięcie, które tak naprawdę otwiera nową historię w działalności portu w Gdyni. Teraz porty morskie są wielofunkcyjnym organizmem, który oprócz funkcji transportowych łączy w sobie funkcje przemysłowe, handlowe, logistyczne. Jest też stymulatorem rozwoju gospodarki całego kraju.
Jest to olbrzymia dźwignia dla przemysłu i też kolejna szansa rozwoju dla Gdyni.
Gdynia, jak wiadomo, jest portem o strategicznym znaczeniu dla gospodarki. Dzięki bardzo takiej silnej współpracy z Ministerstwem Funduszy i Polityki Regionalnej i oczywiście innymi ministerstwami udało się pozyskać finansowanie na infrastrukturę dostępową od strony morza.
Polityka proekologiczna, którą realizuje port Gdynia, również jest naprawdę godna podziwu. Polityka w ramach idei Green Portu, najnowocześniejszy na świecie i jednocześnie najbezpieczniejszy na świecie system nawigacji statków, który notabene jest również bardzo proekologiczny. To wszystko składa się na jedną całość i uzasadniało przyznanie nagrody dla portu Gdynia i dla jej sternika.
Przyjęcie pierwszego statku to jest mniej więcej 2028 rok.
Poprzez zbudowanie portu zewnętrznego Gdynia wróci do tej idei, do tej koncepcji, która przyświecała inżynierowi Wędzie i ministrowi Kwiatkowskiemu, że każdy statek, który wpłynie na Bałtyk, wpłynie również do portu Gdyni.
Budowa portu zewnętrznego praktycznie podwoi obecną powierzchnię zajmowaną przez terminale operacyjne w porcie Gdynia.
W przypadku takiej inwestycji kluczowa jest współpraca pomiędzy Zarządem Morskiego Portu, którego rolą jest stworzenie właściwych warunków, czy to w zakresie właściwego dostępu drogowego i kolejowego do portu. Z drugiej strony partner prywatny jest konieczny do zapewnienia sukcesu dla tego projektu. Tym partnerem prywatnym musi być światowej klasy operator, który będzie w stanie przyciągnąć do Gdyni ładunki.
Z tym projektem odniesie wiele innych korzyści dla innych przedsiębiorców, dla regionu i dla całego kraju.
Port zewnętrzny będzie miał fundamentalne znaczenie dla regionu i dla wszystkiego, co dzieje się w całym obrębie Bałtyku. Bez takiej inwestycji będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Göteborgiem, będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Kłajpedą. Musimy być coraz bardziej nowocześni, musimy umożliwiać dostęp najnowszym, największym statkom, jakie pływają po oceanach.
To jest przedsięwzięcie, które tak naprawdę otwiera nową historię w działalności portu w Gdyni. Teraz porty morskie są wielofunkcyjnym organizmem, który oprócz funkcji transportowych łączy w sobie funkcje przemysłowe, handlowe, logistyczne. Jest też stymulatorem rozwoju gospodarki całego kraju.
Jest to olbrzymia dźwignia dla przemysłu i też kolejna szansa rozwoju dla Gdyni.
Gdynia, jak wiadomo, jest portem o strategicznym znaczeniu dla gospodarki. Dzięki bardzo takiej silnej współpracy z Ministerstwem Funduszy i Polityki Regionalnej i oczywiście innymi ministerstwami udało się pozyskać finansowanie na infrastrukturę dostępową od strony morza.
Polityka proekologiczna, którą realizuje port Gdynia, również jest naprawdę godna podziwu. Polityka w ramach idei Green Portu, najnowocześniejszy na świecie i jednocześnie najbezpieczniejszy na świecie system nawigacji statków, który notabene jest również bardzo proekologiczny. To wszystko składa się na jedną całość i uzasadniało przyznanie nagrody dla portu Gdynia i dla jej sternika.
Przyjęcie pierwszego statku to jest mniej więcej 2028 rok.
Poprzez zbudowanie portu zewnętrznego Gdynia wróci do tej idei, do tej koncepcji, która przyświecała inżynierowi Wędzie i ministrowi Kwiatkowskiemu, że każdy statek, który wpłynie na Bałtyk, wpłynie również do portu Gdyni.
Budowa portu zewnętrznego praktycznie podwoi obecną powierzchnię zajmowaną przez terminale operacyjne w porcie Gdynia.
W przypadku takiej inwestycji kluczowa jest współpraca pomiędzy Zarządem Morskiego Portu, którego rolą jest stworzenie właściwych warunków, czy to w zakresie właściwego dostępu drogowego i kolejowego do portu. Z drugiej strony partner prywatny jest konieczny do zapewnienia sukcesu dla tego projektu. Tym partnerem prywatnym musi być światowej klasy operator, który będzie w stanie przyciągnąć do Gdyni ładunki.
Z tym projektem odniesie wiele innych korzyści dla innych przedsiębiorców, dla regionu i dla całego kraju.
Port zewnętrzny będzie miał fundamentalne znaczenie dla regionu i dla wszystkiego, co dzieje się w całym obrębie Bałtyku. Bez takiej inwestycji będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Göteborgiem, będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Kłajpedą. Musimy być coraz bardziej nowocześni, musimy umożliwiać dostęp najnowszym, największym statkom, jakie pływają po oceanach.
To jest przedsięwzięcie, które tak naprawdę otwiera nową historię w działalności portu w Gdyni. Teraz porty morskie są wielofunkcyjnym organizmem, który oprócz funkcji transportowych łączy w sobie funkcje przemysłowe, handlowe, logistyczne. Jest też stymulatorem rozwoju gospodarki całego kraju.
Jest to olbrzymia dźwignia dla przemysłu i też kolejna szansa rozwoju dla Gdyni.
Gdynia, jak wiadomo, jest portem o strategicznym znaczeniu dla gospodarki. Dzięki bardzo takiej silnej współpracy z Ministerstwem Funduszy i Polityki Regionalnej i oczywiście innymi ministerstwami udało się pozyskać finansowanie na infrastrukturę dostępową od strony morza.
Polityka proekologiczna, którą realizuje port Gdynia, również jest naprawdę godna podziwu. Polityka w ramach idei Green Portu, najnowocześniejszy na świecie i jednocześnie najbezpieczniejszy na świecie system nawigacji statków, który notabene jest również bardzo proekologiczny. To wszystko składa się na jedną całość i uzasadniało przyznanie nagrody dla portu Gdynia i dla jej sternika.
Przyjęcie pierwszego statku to jest mniej więcej 2028 rok.
Poprzez zbudowanie portu zewnętrznego Gdynia wróci do tej idei, do tej koncepcji, która przyświecała inżynierowi Wędzie i ministrowi Kwiatkowskiemu, że każdy statek, który wpłynie na Bałtyk, wpłynie również do portu Gdyni.
Welcome you at the next session of Transport Week 2021. I hope you had some time to drop your lunch. We have to go with our agenda for today. There is still one session with 3 speakers. At the beginning, we will listen to 2 persons from Port of Szczecin-Świnoujście and Port of Gdynia talking about new projects in Poland, the outer port projects. So, without further delay, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Maciej Krzesiński from Port of Gdynia Authority, the project manager for outer port in Gdynia. Maciej,
Gdynia, from Port of Gdynia. Hello.
Yes, I hope you are there and you are ready.
Yes, I hope so.
Okay. In fact, we are not far from each other. I think we can even see your building, maybe from the other angle, but we can see it. So it's nice that you are there, and please take your time for your presentation. Please.
Okay, thank you for the invitation to the Transport Week this year. I would like to say a few words about the outer port in Port of Gdynia. Give me 1 second. I have to launch my presentation. Please. Yes, do you see my presentation? Okay. When we talk about the outer port, it's good to explain why we take into account the building of the outer port. In Port of Gdynia, the container handling is still rising. Over 900,000 TEU in 2020 was a new record in container handling in the Port of Gdynia. And this facts another market justification for the further development of the port container infrastructure. Of course, I would not like to come back to the issue of transshipments in the Baltic Sea because the topic has been exhausted in previous presentation. However, I would like to briefly summarize the transshipment in Port of Gdynia. And as you can see, in the recent years, a particularly constant increase in transshipment has been observed, especially in the not only in the general cargo, but in the container too. And especially in last 2 years, we have a record in 2019, it was nearly 900,000 TEU, and in 2020, it was over 900. This year, last 2 months shows us that we have still rising in and increasing of the container handling. Just now, I hope it will be more or less over 10, maybe 11% year to year. We are the 3rd port in the Baltic if we talk about the container handling, and that is why we try to develop a new container terminal. And in few words, what we want to prepare. It will be a completely new port. Just now, of course, we have 2 container terminals in the internal port, but we want to have a deep sea container terminal out of the port. That is why we call them out. It will be 2.5 million TEU capacity every year, more than 2 kilometers of operational quays. Mass drop, it will be 16 meters, environment friendly, of course, and modern equipment and infrastructure. I hope that there will be, for example, maybe this kind of the items, like for example, maybe later. Completely vessels up to 430 meters of length. Maybe in the perspective, in the further perspective, it will be nearly 500 meters, because I know that today the planet projected vessels will have length more than 400. New jobs, of course, it depends on the what kind of terminal we will build, because this decision will be in the private partner side. That is why I hope that it will be more or less 700 people only on the terminals, and next over 4,000 people in general in the port and in the maritime economy. Next stages, first stage of the port will be in the 2026-2027, I hope, and maybe it is possible to build the next stages in between 2027-2040, but it's only plan. And just now we know that it will be this third stage. Port rise on the sea. Yes, we think about the completely new port out of the breakwaters, the main breakwaters of Port of Gdynia. As you can see, we want to build completely new port on the Baltic Sea, on the Gdańska Bay. 150 hectares of the land area with the tracks. I think that it will be possible to host a full intermodal train here. 2.3 kilometers west of the new port. 4 berths, general 4 berths for the longest vessels, but of course we know that we will host the smaller vessels here from the east side of the quay, and here on the western side of the land. It is possible to host not only containers, but we want to handle offshore here. Maybe not, it is of course possible because the project is very scalable. That is why we know that we can build an offshore terminal at the end of the terminal, but it is of course possible to do it in the first stage on the beginning of the terminal. The largest vessels, as I told you, we think that it will be more or less 450 meters. It will be maximum length, and the maximum drop will be 16 meters. That is why we can handle the vessels and the containers from the biggest vessels in the world. Very important for the new port and for existing port, not only for the new port, is dedicated road infrastructure. Of course, we still think about the Red Road, and I hope that maybe this year, maybe in the beginning of the next year, we will project this road. And I hope it will start in 2023, maybe. The similar project to the port of Gdynia and a complementary project to the outer port is port logistic facilities. This will be the storage yards, some area for the trucks. It is over 260 hectares of the new land in the border of the port of Gdynia. But as I told you, it's a complementary project. It's not directly connected with the outer port just now, but it is possible that we do it in the next years. I think that it could be ready for the 2030. Very important for us in the outer port is dedicated rail infrastructure. Just now, it's ongoing project in the port of Gdynia. It's over 130 kilometers of new tracks and over 350 crossovers that are rebuilt in port of Gdynia. And what is more important for us, there is planned area for the further development for the need of the outer port. And of course, we think about the full intermodal trains and all of the trains will be not less than 750 meters length. What is the cost of the new outer port? We try to count that, and I think that it will be more or less 375 million PLN. That is an investment cost of the building of the new port, and of course it included the equipment of the new terminal. We prepared that project in the public partnership. That is why I hope that the more, maybe not more, but general, I think that the cost will be about the private partner side generally. Of course, some part of this cost will be in our side, but it will be negotiated in the competitive dialogue, what is which started 2 weeks or a few weeks ago. The key milestones of the project, of course, it's not a completely new project. It's a project which started in 2018. In May 2018, we had a multi-branch concept. In September 2019, it was a final concept. We from the many of the concept we choose the one I hope that it was the best one. In November 2019, we launched the PPP formula and PPP process. April 2020, it was public consultations. In June 2020, project appraisal and the economical assessment of the project and market testing was very important for us. November 2020, private partner invitations for the applications of potential private partners to participate in the competitive dialogue. In December 2020, very important for us, breakwaters funding, transfer of the funds, 150 million euro to the Port of Gdynia Authority for the breakwaters. We have the money for the external access from the seaside. It's very important for the potential partners. Geological works project, December 2020. We are ready to start. Feasibility study, December 2020. January 2021, equipment report. Environment report is ready, and just now we are waiting for the decision. And February 2021, agreement with the Maritime Office cooperation in the project and construction of the breakwaters. Next few weeks, we will have few parts of the competitive dialogue. I think that to the end of the 2020, we will have private partnerships, and in the beginning of the 2022, we will sign the contract, and I hope that next year we will start build a new outer port. This is the schedule of the project. Competitive dialogue we will start in the April of 2021. Technical documentations and administrative decision, all of the administrative decision will be in 2024. but I think that some part of the project, especially if we talk about the breakwaters, will start built maybe in next year. Sorry. I hope that in 2027, maybe 2026, at the end of 2026, we will have terminal in our port. And a short film for the end of my presentation. Okay, at the end of my presentation, I would like to say that next year we will have a 100th anniversary of the Port of Gdynia, and I hope that maybe we will not be in the future the biggest port in the Baltic Sea, but I think that we will be the smarter port and the greener port in the Baltic Sea. This is our future, and I hope that it will be. Thank you very much.
Maciej, thank you very much for being with us and for presenting your great idea. And it is very impressive, I have to say, and very comprehensive project that you have to deal with many different items in order to deliver such a project. I have one question, in fact, because you have presented also the connection, the access to the new planned outer port from land side, so-called red road, and also the rail connections. What about the breakwaters from the water side and the canals that lead to the terminal? Can you say what about this investment? Who is doing that, and when you expect this to be finished?
Yes, of course. Thank you for this question. I think that if we talk about the breakwaters, of course, it's necessary to build a new port. It's impossible to build a completely new terminal out of the existing port if we not have the breakwaters. That is why we organized the financing with the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Funds and European funds. And of course, just now we have the money for the breakwaters. We will be the one of the investment together with the Maritime Office in Gdynia. And I hope that we will start to build breakwaters next year. Of course, it will be not breakwaters only for the outer port. It will be it will breakwaters for the internal port too, but generally it's impossible to develop a new port without the breakwaters. That is why we have to do that.
Thank you. And maybe one more question, just to clarify. You are expecting to appoint the private partner in year 2022. Is it? Am I right?
Sorry, 2020. Yes, 2022. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So within 1 year time, the partner for your project will be known.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Well, we have one more question from chat. What is the concept of a possible further expansion of the outer port? Will it be possible at all?
Sorry, can you repeat? Because I didn't hear.
What is the concept of possible further expansion of the outer port? Will it be possible at all? So the question is whether is there any way to expand the outer port further?
No, I don't think so. It's of course just now we think about the expansion and build the outer port through to the 2.5 kilometers through to the Baltic Sea or Gdańska Bay. But the next stage could be not through to the Gdańska Bay, but to the I think that it will be on more or less on the south of the. Of course, directions we will develop the next stage south in south. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for clarification. I think we should go now to our next speaker, but Maciej, please stay with us. There might be some questions later on about digitalization in the port. Will you stay with us for next an hour or so?
I hope so, but I have a meeting at 1 o'clock, so we'll see, okay?
Okay. Well, let's see. But anyhow, we have to go to another point of our agenda. I'd like to welcome Mr. Marek Prażmak. Marek is the board's representative for the container terminal project in Świnoujście. I'm sure Marek will present us the idea, the concept of the outer port and container terminal in port of Świnoujście. And just a question, Marek, are you with us? Are you there?
Can you hear me? Hello.
I can hear you, and I can see a very beautiful another Polish port on backside. And also sun is there, so it's very good. Marek, please go on with your presentation.
Good afternoon. I have a presentation about container terminal in Świnoujście. It's not the external port in Świnoujście. This would be two different things. It's just about the container terminal in Świnoujście project. I will try to run the presentation. No. Okay. Do you see the presentation? At least the first slide of it. Hope so. Cannot hear anything. Anyway, good afternoon again. This is the presentation about development of a deep water container terminal in Świnoujście. Let's start with a few words of introduction. The ports are vital for the economy from the historical point of view. Every maritime-oriented country was doing very well. Presently, about 90% of international trade exchange is delivered by sea, and these goods are handled in the ports. So the ports mean direct benefits. The huge companies working in the ports, stevedoring companies, forwarding companies, agents, port authorities. According to the statistical yearbook of the Polish Statistical Office, there is about 9,000 people employed in the ports directly. That means 9,000 people working in the terminals, in the stevedoring companies, and in the port authorities. According to the study done by, I guess, done by Maritime Academy in Gdynia, probably with Actia Forum together, every workplace in the port creates additional 4 workplaces in the surrounding industry and influences about 30 workplaces in the national economy. As for the factors affecting life of the port, it's not a closed list. Market is very dynamic, so the factors which influence the life of the ports change or shift. They are also very dynamic. The ships are growing bigger, as we know, of course, or they did before the pandemic. We will see about the future. More and more goods are delivered in containers. It's not only general cargo. Only part of the bulk cargo is or was prior pandemic times delivered in containers. And ports are no longer just places where the goods are handled from one means of transport to another. They become logistic and distribution centers, or even production centers in some areas. Digitalization of processes, we have plenty of that in the ports. Every terminal has its own terminal operating system. Custom office has its system. The port authorities are shareholders, including Szczecin-Świnoujście Port Authority, are shareholders of Polish PCS, which is supposed to deliver a port community system for Polish ports one day. And we could go on with the list. There are factors connected to environmental protection, waste management, energy management, geopolitical issues, globalization, etc., etc., etc. As for the market, the figures which are shown here are based on a study done for the Port Authority in 2019. That's why the base is the numbers from 2018, although the study is analyzing development of container traffic globally in Baltic Sea region and in Polish ports, and forecasting that until 2040. And the study shows that there is a place for another hub port in Baltic area already. As it was shown in the presentation today in the morning, Baltic Sea region is about 1 million TEU turnover at the moment. And Polish ports handle about 3 million TEUs presently for a third year in a row. Although again, the 2/3 of that is handled in Gdańsk in deepwater container terminal, which became a kind of a trendsetter in this respect in the Baltic Sea area. As for the one of the DCT's shareholders, PSA press release shown a couple of months ago, Port of Singapore Authority thinks or plans or considers development of the terminal up to 8 million TEU, which is more or less in line with result of the study which we have done. And anyway, from the customer's point of view, it's better to have, for example, 3 places with the capacity of 3 million each than one huge with the capacity of 10 million. Looking at the containers in Polish ports, the graph shows the development of volume from year 2000 to 2020. It's worth mentioning that this last 20 years, we came from the volumes of around 250,000 TEU to about 3 million TEU presently, which is 15-fold increase. We are handling 15 times more containers now than we did in year 2000, in the beginning of the new century. There is a number of reasons for that, but I just wanted to show one specific thing, one of them. You see the change in the speed of growth in year 2010. And what happened in year 2010? There was a first deepwater vessel call in the Baltic Sea to the DCT terminal in Gdańsk on January 4th, 2010. Maersk Taikung, it was past Panamax vessel. And that changed the game in our area. Deepwater terminal makes a difference. Saying that, we have to show the other side of equation. The big part of Port Authority work is working with documentation. So the concept or idea of the project is based in several very important documents. Just to mention the Council recommendation for Poland, showing support for development of maritime transport, which is eco-friendly and low-emission mean of transport, and also development of digital solution. That investment is also foreseen in strategies on national level, strategy for sustainable development, strategy for regional development, strategy for development of transport, development program for Polish ports, and others. But the last one is pretty important. That's our Act of 9th August 2019 on investment in external ports. This is very important because that facilitates administrative procedure for construction of these external ports, including the container terminal in Świnoujście. And so we really hope that preparing that necessary allowances and administration work will be much faster and easier thanks to that. Deepwater container terminal is also part of the activities described in development strategy for the ports of Szczecin and Świnoujście, development plan for Szczecin and Świnoujście Seaports Authority until 2030. And physical development of the project means that those strategic documents are really transferred into a reality. After that short introduction, let's go into the terminal itself, beginning with the location. On this picture, you can see the aerial view of the port of Świnoujście. But when we look at the map of the Baltic Sea, North Europe and the Baltic Sea actually, the Baltic Sea, which is basically the huge intra-European lake surrounded by EU countries, which going from southwest are Germany, Poland, Kaliningrad region, which is part of Russia, and then Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Russia again, Finland and Sweden. Actually, there is a project of the bicycle road surrounding the Baltic Sea in the coastal line. I don't know about Russia, but otherwise that would be very interesting to run this and to see the Baltic Sea from various perspectives. And for the ports market, that was what the colleague from DCT said today. The Baltic Sea means the access to market of Central Europe, Central Eastern Europe, Belarus, Ukraine, Baltic states, partly Scandinavia, partly Russia. Entrance to the Baltic Sea, however, goes through this narrow path between Denmark and Sweden goes through the Danish Straits, and this is the important part. Well, of course, there is a Kiel Canal, of course, also, but for the big ship, Danish Straits are the route. And we have also numerous ports on the Baltic Sea, but until 2020, that was a purely feeder market handled by the North Sea hubs, mostly Hamburg, Bremerhaven, Rotterdam on the later stage. And when we look at the same map with ship routes added and the port logo blinking here, this map is created from AES showing actual position of the ships. So these yellow dots are actual position of the ships put together, and that shows how the ships are sailing to and from Baltic Sea through the Danish Straits. And ports of Szczecin and Świnoujście are pretty conveniently located between North Sea and the Baltic Sea, in a very convenient location in the direct vicinity of the Danish Straits on the entrance to the Baltic Sea. Port of Świnoujście is located directly on the sea coast, while Port of Szczecin is located 68 kilometers inland. And if we compare the distance between Danish Straits and ports of Świnoujście, comparing to the coal to the ports of East Coast or Gdańsk Bay, the way from Danish Straits to Świnoujście is 11 hours each way shorter than to ports of Gdańsk Bay, which means that both ways the ship saves practically 1 day. For a ship size of these ultra large container vessels, that means around $120,000 per each call. Today may be even bigger because this rate increase. And the call to Świnoujście is that much cheaper than the call to ports located more to the east. Each call. When we look again, when we look at the map of the container hub ports in the region, the closest to Świnoujście are Hamburg and Gdańsk, and Świnoujście is located almost in the middle. And depth of the fairways to the ports in Gdańsk 17 meters. Hamburg is a bit more shallow. Yes, there is a dredging of the river now, dredging and widening of the river, and the tides which allow ships of the bigger draft go in and out. Although after dredging the fairway to Świnoujście to 17 meters, the port will join the group of the deepest in the region. The ports of Szczecin and Świnoujście are also part of the TEN-T network, and they are both on the list of seaports and inland ports as they are located on the river. The ports of Szczecin and Świnoujście are also located on the shortest route between Scandinavia and Central and South Europe. Looking at the hinterland for ports of Szczecin, Świnoujście, that consists mostly of western part of Poland, eastern part of Germany, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Austria, or probably even Hungary. Let's take at the aerial view of Świnoujście. City of Świnoujście visible on the left side of the river, and port and existing terminals on the right side of the river. Going from south, that's Euro Terminal, which is general goods and frozen cargo terminal, ferry terminal, the biggest in Poland, 13 ferries per day between Poland and Sweden. Otiport, which is bulk and general cargo terminal. LNG terminal, very important for liquid gas deliveries to Poland. And then the container terminal will be located east of existing breakwater of LNG terminal. As you can see on this picture, that will be a greenfield investment with no existing infrastructure that would require reconstruction or relocation. And it has direct open access to the sea, rail and road network. Actually, the end of this gray shadow touches the rail line, which starts down there in Świnoujście. access from the open sea, the approach channel, which is presently 13.5 meter deep, which allows ships with draft of around 13 meters, needs dredging to 17 meters for a deep water container terminal. And in December 2020, the Ministry of Finance issued bonds of 1 billion Polish zloty value with the purpose of financing of the access infrastructure to the external ports. Out of this amount, Szczecin and Świnoujście Port Authority received the bonds of value of about 328 million Polish zloty. Landside access to the terminal, this is very straightforward. Everything needed is about 3 kilometers of connecting road and rail tracks. The road is connecting the terminal directly with the S3 express road, and rail is connecting the terminal to the existing international rail line E59. There will be most probably the rail terminal at the pier capable of handling trains of lengths of 750 meters, as intermodal will be very important part of this terminal. In general, land side provides smooth, fast and collision-free access. Land connection with the hinterland, as I mentioned, S3 express road going from Świnoujście, starting in Świnoujście, going down south to Lubawka on a Czech border, crossing all major east-west roads, A6, A4, A2, A4. S3 express road is in the biggest part rebuilt national road number 3, and last section of this are presently being modernized. So certainly until the terminal is there, the road will be ready. Rail lines E59 and CE59, which are part of the international rail corridor north-south, going from starting in Malmö and Ystad in Sweden and going down to Ostrava, Vienna, Prague and Budapest. This is shortest and very convenient rail connection between Scandinavia and Central East Europe. It's included in TEN-T and in AGC agreement, so will allow fast trains to move. Inland waterway connections, the ports in Szczecin, Świnoujście have this possibility that hopefully in future the use of eco-friendly and cheap intermodal inland waterway transport will be possible. Under national plan for modernization of inland waterways, Oder River will be adjusted to 5A class of navigability. It's also part of Aegean Convention. It's international waterway E30. Plans of that modernization are also prepared within the structure of Szczecin-Świnoujście Port Authority. There is a special Oder River office which is preparing documentation and materials for that investment. It's a huge program that needs a lot of work and a lot of financing. Hopefully will be executed as soon as possible, taking in consideration all possible aspects of inland navigation. And through the Oder Havel Canal, which is marked here in the western part, the ports of Szczecin-Świnoujście have also connection with European waterway system. These are all these access improvement programs put together. Almost all of them are being already realized, so they will be, most of them will be ready before the terminal is there. Now let's look at the terminal itself. Here is the possible shape of the terminal. As for the deepwater terminal, the port infrastructure will be built with a depth of 17 meters for ships of 15 meters max draft. Planned max capacity 2 million TEU, which means practical handling volume of about 1.5 million TEU. The terminal should be built with the highest possible operational performance and ecological care using minimal emission equipment or best zero emission equipment and solutions. Energy source for ships during the ship's stay in port would be delivered there. There will be possibility of LNG bunkering for ships which will be fueled by LNG. There is a LNG terminal in the neighborhood, which is also being modernized presently. The additional berth for LNG exports and loading of bunker ships is being built presently. That terminal hopefully will be a hub terminal, which means we'll be able to handle direct calls of ocean-going vessels, but also, of course, feeder ships and short sea traffic. There is another address impression of the terminal. 1,300 of depth sea berth with the depth of 17 meters that will enable simultaneous berthing of 2 ships of 400 meters in length and 1 ship of 2,000 my goodness, that will allow for simultaneous berthing of 2 ships of 400 meters in length and 1 ship of 200 meters in length. About 2 kilometers of the breakwater, turning basin with diameter of 800 meters for 400 meter ships. The turning basin will be located more or less where the ship is drawn right on the picture here. The terminal area about 80 hectares, ice-free all year long, smooth rail road connections. And the important factor is that what I'm showing here is a general assumption or general vision of the terminal, as the final shape of the terminal will be designed and later built by the investor chosen by the port authority who will meet those criteria. So the port authority is not positioned to force anybody to do anything, although the investor should fill in at least these major conditions stipulated by the port authority. That is a deep water terminal, that is 2 million TEU capacity, and these 2 big ships and 1 smaller ship together. That would be a division of work between various parties active in the project. Access, which shall be provided by the Maritime Office, then the Port Authority responsible for dredging of the container basin between LNG pier and container terminal and the turning circle, and the terminal operator who will build the terminal itself. Schedule of the project, there was a lot of work done already, all this preparation work, pre-feasibility studies, consultations, active informations, meetings, environmental, etc., etc., etc. We are now on the beginning of year 2021, which means we are in the middle of tendering process. There is a tender opened, and the Port Authority is waiting for the offers from the interested investors. We assume 1 year for design and obtaining permits under this special act. Hopefully will allow to move it pretty quickly. And then, if all going well, the terminal can be operational in 2024 already. Yes, there is a number of benefits, and again, it's not a closed list, and we could stipulate many of them for all parties involved in the project and all companies working with the project, with the terminal in the future. However, the terminal in Świnoujście seems to be filling the gap between Hamburg and Gdańsk, offering convenient access to the hinterland of Western Poland, Eastern Germany, South Europe, available for short transport distances from this area, and with access to all means of inland transport. The advantage of Świnoujście is also the location on the Baltic Sea, reducing the cost for mainline vessel call compared to the ports of East Coast. This investment, we hope, will strengthen Poland's position as the major transshipment country and secure the interest of Polish foreign trade I'm sorry. Thank you. It's not a new port, it's a new terminal.
It's a new terminal, yeah. Yeah, it's a new terminal in Port of Świnoujście. I have one question. You said that 3 terminals, deep sea terminals, are better than one. One is that?
I'm sorry?
Why is that? Why you think 3 terminals are better than one?
Of course, there is a number of reasons for that. First of all, your hinterland is covered in a better way. You have a shorter distance between the port and the terminal when these terminals are located in various places. Presently, we are in the situation where we have 2 projects in Gdańsk, Gdynia, which is basically the same terminal, the same hinterland, and the Świnoujście project, which is west, 300 kilometers west on Polish-German border. So that's a bit different hinterland. Secondly, what we have seen on a DCT in the last years, when the volumes went up, or really went up, you have the congestion problem. It's a beautiful terminal, no question about it. It's beautiful and very well designed and developing terminal. But to book the window, your truck window, for example, you need a bit of luck, or you need to do it in the night time or when the traffic is lower. So 3 terminals give you 3 times better access, much better covering of the hinterland, and give the customer a better choice or better choice possibility. And the competition is always healthy. That's another thing.
Thank you. I think we do have one question from a chat. I'm just waiting to this question to be displayed. So the question is, some say that the construction of 3 large container ports may not be sustainable or feasible. Marek, what's your take on that? What do you think about it?
Yeah, this is widely commented or discussed nowadays. And I guess these ports trying to develop these 3 terminals, DCT will develop anyway. And I'm pretty sure about that. Świnoujście, which hopefully will develop as we are during that process, and the Gdynia terminal, which will develop a couple of years later. They will base on increasing volume in Polish ports, as we expect, or as the parties preparing the forecast for the Baltic Sea. The Baltic Sea is developing much faster than the rest of the world. There is also the number of reasons for that. First of all, of course, development of these post-Eastern Bloc countries, which are getting richer and have bigger consumption power, so buying more things and selling and producing more. So we really hope that the volume in the years to come will be enough to feed all 3 terminals.
Yes, in fact, that's the many experts underlined that there should be more and more container throughputs in Baltic ports, including Polish ports, of course. So there's a general trend in the market that there is a clear message for the investors that this part of Europe will be handled more and more. I mean, more and more containers will be handled in this part of Europe.
Yes, there will be hopefully more and more containers or goods consumed and produced, which shall increase the container traffic. But please remember also that we are discussing in all those 3 projects, we are discussing hub ports. That means the ports handling or serving the other Baltic or ports located in the Baltic Sea area. That means that it's a major problem for another hub ports in the North Sea that are handling those containers presently. But for the Baltic Sea area, for the shipping lines, that could be cheaper. The discussion was exactly the same discussion when DCT was developed in the beginning of years on 21st century, year 2000, between 2000 and 2004. There was a question, why do you need a new deep water terminal in Poland? We have two beautiful terminals in Gdynia, and they are not fully utilized. Why additional capacity? And then suddenly, there was an outbreak, there was an explosion, container explosion. So we really hope for the same to happen in the future.
Okay, Marek, thank you very much. I think time is running, so we have to go to next point of our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's jump now to a bit different theme. We will talk about digitalization. Digitalization in ports, of course, is a topic that is discussed very broadly in port industry. And today we will have a speech from Mr. Richard Morton, who is the Secretary General of IPCSA, which is International Port Community System Association, if I'm right. But Richard, are you there? Are you with us?
I am here, and hopefully you can see my screen. Hello, everyone. Hello, Bogdan.
Hello, Richard. Where are you, in fact? Where are you based now?
I'm actually on the shores of the Baltic in Latvia, which I call my home. So this is a very relevant forum for me from that perspective.
So the Brexit didn't impact you much since you are in here?
Still British, but resident in Latvia. So I think there's a best of both worlds.
Okay, Richard, so the title of your speech is How can digitalization help weather the storm based on the experiences brought by the latest global pandemic? Quite interesting one, so please take your time, but not too much. I hope 15 minutes would be okay for you.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Please.
Thank you. Hopefully, you can see my slides. So thank you for inviting me here. It's fascinating to see the developments and the progress made in the ports of Poland, particularly, and also the outlook for the Baltics. Digitalization, though, is something we all talk about now, but how many ports are actually looking at it in detail? And particularly with the current situation around the world with the pandemic and restrictions on transport and other things, I think it's important to really come back to some of the basics. So when we think about the pandemic, we talk about a need for speed, particularly when you're talking about the vaccines and also protective personal equipment. A lot of the PPE is also moving by sea now. So again, this isn't just for moving vaccines by air and other means, it's for the whole of the transport sector. And we know that COVID has issues around how it can be transmitted between different parties. It's about how does it affect employees? How does it affect work down? How do you avoid congestion? How do you avoid the paperwork in ports? So when we look at these types of things, we start to think about digitalization. The war on paper has to intensify. Long gone are the days of hundreds of copies which need to be hand stamped and stand in a long queue of people to get them stamped. And again, it's about enabling all of the players within a port to carry out their work, whatever the conditions, working from home, where that's suitable, and all of that brings around savings. And what have we seen as the impact and lessons learned from COVID? Well, around the world, we've seen that there's less resistance to change to new methods of working. If we go back 2 years, and we all talked about having conferences online, meetings regularly online without physical meetings, there was a lot of resistance to it. Oh, it won't work, it can't work. We've all adapted. And that's one of the key themes. It's about adaptation and changing. One of the things we say as IPSCA is, in order to stay the same, you have to change. And that's something that the pandemic has forced upon us. Digitalisation is now becoming one of the highest priorities rather than further down the list in many of the port master plans we see around the world. And it's not just the ports, the whole supply chain, users, stakeholders, government and customs administrations, border agencies, security agencies are all seeing that actually we can increase transparency through the supply chain by greater use of digitalisation. And actually, in a lot of cases, remote worker employees can be productive if the work that they do allows that. And we've also seen that growth of port community systems and single windows around the world, because they've actually enabled ports to continue with very little impact in terms of the operational basis, because they aren't having the need for sharing bits of paper around, meeting people to get stamps. And as I said, video conferencing, online meetings has become the norm. So there's some of the impact and lessons learned. But if we get back to digitalisation, sometimes we never ask ourselves the purpose. What is the purpose of a port digitalised? Is it to make the port authority more efficient? Is it to facilitate trade, more cargo going through the port? Is it about keeping up with the competing ports because they've gone digital, you need to go digital in certain areas, automatic gates and those things? Is it about servicing the needs of the port users? Is it about having safe and secure borders? Is it about having global connectivity, greater transparency on where goods are coming from and when they're going to arrive? It's a combination of all of those things, but every port will have its own imperative as to what they are trying to do and what they are trying to achieve. And note, I haven't talked about technology. This is not a technology issue. Technology is just the enabler. And I think that's something we sometimes forget. The technology is just the enabler. It's about your business processes in ports that is key for the digitalization aspect. And what do we mean by digitalization? As I said, technology is just an enabler. Are we talking about digitalizing the flow of information between the stakeholders, creating smarter physical things, automated movement vehicles in the port, automated cranes, drones, the list is endless, autonomous vessels, barges, vehicles, automatic gates? And is it about reducing paperwork, bottlenecks, those types of things? We would always say it's a combination of all of the above. But from our perspective as a port community system association, we're always looking at the process flow of information. It is always great that you have technology behind you, but actually what information does that technology provide and what can you do with it? And that's one of the key to it. And what does it release in terms of the flow? So when a port is looking at digitalization, you have to look at a number of things. What is the starting point? Where do you start from? We find that we have conversations around the world saying, we know we need to digitalize, but we don't really know where we are. Well, that's the first step. What is your existing digital infrastructure? And one of the things I missed in the first two presentations of this session was very little talk about digital infrastructure. We talked about physical infrastructure, the creation of new quays and roads and how it's all connectivity. But what is the digital infrastructure that is there? Do all the ports have effective port management information systems? Port community systems. We know Poland has made great strides with Polski PCS, which will be looking towards in the next months to implementing a number of its modules. And again, those types of things you need to consider. Is there a vessel traffic management system? What's your terminal operating system? What's the status of your maritime single window, which provides a lot of the core information for a vessel arriving at a port? How is customs involved? What systems? A number of years ago, when they looked at the first maritime single window directive in Europe, The UK did an investigation of all the systems that were related to maritime. They came up with over 300 systems that were involved from a government and public authority perspective. So you have to understand what infrastructure and what capacity do they have. You might have a port management information system, but how old is it? Are you linked into just one supplier? Who manages it? Do you have the resources internally? And also with that, you need to look at your digital strategy. Digital strategies aren't like your traditional master plans. They need to be updated regularly, 6 months at a minimum, preferably every few months, to keep up to date with the changes that are moving on, new regulations. We all saw how the general data protection regulation in Europe impacted and how many digital services needed to update what they were doing. Digital strategies can't wait. They need to be integrated into the port master plans. And the digital strategy should have dedicated resources of people, not just an IT manager who's maintaining systems, but a strategy manager in terms of bringing things forward. And that would actually help in terms of addressing issues such as the global pandemic and actually how to support the movement of goods through ports. And the other thing that we've seen is collaboration. Everybody is now talking about collaboration, but it's one of the most difficult things to actually achieve. It's not about just presenting to stakeholders as a port, say this is what we're doing. It's about involving them in your development strategies, in their digital strategies. What are their pain points for users? What are they currently using? Just because the port may have implemented a new system, it doesn't mean that all of the users in the port are able to use it. And also be prepared to accept their views, good, the bad, and the ugly, making sure that they actually understand what is needed of them, and also that you might not always have it right as a port. And also engage with other government agencies. As an association, we've been working with ports around the world, and one of the ports had a national master plan. Very good, included the development of a port community system. However, nobody had spoken to customs about it. And immediately there was a long and continual discussion about whether customs was engaged or not. And if you're moving goods through a port, customs need to be involved. I'm pleased to say, as I understand in Poland, customs has fully embraced that in terms of the digitalization and also supporting Polski PCS. And then we look at standards. What are the standards that are needed around the world? What standards do you as government agencies or public authorities use? What are the standards that the port users use? And when we talk about standards, there are several. There's the data standards. What data standards? Is a port, is a ship a ship? In customs terminology, generally a port of call means arrival at quayside. That's the port. When it's arrival at port, that's what it means. For a maritime authority, it's generally maritime territory of that port. So you have to look at the data standards. And then you have the technical standards. And that's one of the current challenges of digitalization, where you have drones that are very technical. The providers of those drones have all of the technical standards you could ever wish, but they then forget about the data standards. So they're supplying PDFs to ports to analyze data. It should actually be managed through data models working together, internationally known standards. And so when you're procuring any new digital technologies, make sure you stipulate in there when you're looking for information to be received from them, what data standards are going to be used? Are they commonly used by our users and internationally? So moving back to COVID, when you're looking at COVID and what the impact has been, it's about building resilience for the future. In the middle of last year as IPSCA, we prepared a paper, which is available through the link at the bottom of the slide, preparing for post-COVID-19 operations. Very simple, the 3 Ps, plan, Constantly review your plan, consider those plans and rationalize what is practical. Digitalization of information flows isn't as easy as buying Microsoft. It's about understanding the business process behind it, all of the stakeholders involved. It's about people. Trust your people, that they're going to be working remotely and that they can remotely, and help your people and the stakeholders adapt to any new environment we may see. It's about the processes specifically, connectivity. How connected are you? How can we do it? How many times in webinars that people have issues with connecting? And that's the same internally. I've mentioned standards. And also think about technology neutral solutions. What do we mean by that? We mean that if you buy a technology today, that in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, you can still implement new elements of it because you've got the core basis of the core technology international standards and the data standards, which then enables you to progress and update your digital strategy and constantly test your systems. So these are some of the areas that, when we talk about digitalization, are creating new ways of doing things. And one of the areas that is becoming more and more important because of the pandemic, even though it was something that was required before, it's really now put it at the forefront of everybody's mind. That's about tracking and tracing the goods, understanding where they are, knowing information at real time. And as IPSCA, we launched last year our network of trusted networks, possibly not the best of time to launch something like this in the middle of a pandemic, but actually it's given ports the ability to join and to start looking at new technologies. What we did was we took the everyday concepts that we all know and use, catalogs, marketplaces, choice of services, encrypted exchange. For us, as a Port Community System Association, a grouping of global ports that have huge amounts of information. And we adapted those everyday concepts to allow for this port-to-port and cross-border exchange of information in what we call a network of trusted networks. Well, what is the benefit? What are the principles? Well, it's neutral and not-for-profit. We are a not-for-profit association, and all we're doing is enabling. We're like a digital solution, enabling ports, port community systems and single windows to talk around the world for port-to-port and cross-border information. Governance is the key. So it's more of a governance platform than a technology platform, because the problem isn't generally technology with anything that we do. It's, if I want to exchange information from Poland to China, I need to have an agreement with them in the first place. I need to understand what that information is we're exchanging, who owns it, what can you do with it? And what we did is take those everyday things we are used to. So we now have APIs which you can implement in your system, but when you implement it, you agree to the terms and conditions, very much like an app on your phone. The only thing an API doesn't have is actual data. So you then find a data provider, another platform around the world, that can actually provide you the data you need, and you agree the data fee for it. And it's as simple as that. Once you have the agreement, you unlock the connection and they can start exchanging data in a matter of minutes once they've set up on the platform and set up. So again, this allows for different business models around the world, different ways of working, and it's also low cost to platforms and thus their users, because it's using information that you currently have. And so when we talk about digitalization, it's about forward thinking. It's about, we know we're a port, but actually we're a port. We get information from around the world. What can we do with that and how can we share with it? Currently, we have 2 APIs in our catalog, port call and cargo status. Port call will tell you real-time data on when a vessel arrives and departs ports, but in an easy way. So as a user of a port community system, you can integrate into that. Cargo status has about 30 data elements, And it's something that Alibaba worked with us on to identify the right data elements that them as a user would like: custom status, arrival time, that type of information. We currently have 15 countries, 42 seaports and 10 airports, and that's gradually expanding as we include more APIs covering rail, road and air, because as an association, we aren't just maritime focused. So for digitalization and how to weather the storm, make sure you have your digital strategies. Make sure you're looking outward. Make sure that you are able to view the world and adapt to the change. And as I said, one of the sayings we use in IPSCA, in order to stay the same, you have to change. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bogdan.
Thank you very much for this, I would say, very basic presentation. At the beginning, you have also asked, in fact, basic questions. What is the digitalization for? What's the reason we have to think about digitalization? And I found one of the questions a very critical one. Is it to make the port more efficient? For me, digitalization is simply about that. Is to make port more efficient. Richard?
I agree. It depends on your perspective. Because some people say, yes, digitization is to make the port more efficient. And it will. But it may have to go through a series of other processes. How many times and how many of the ports listening here today have a CEO who have come to them and said, we need to use blockchain? And it's like, why do you want to use blockchain? Because everybody else is using blockchain. But actually, if you look at blockchain uses around the world, there are very few use cases that are successful. And so that's why you have to keep asking these very basic questions. Because if you don't ask the basic questions what we're trying to achieve, you will end up as a port with hundreds of different systems that cannot talk to each other. Because it's about making sure they're connected. So hopefully that helps. So efficiency is the core element, but it might be about making people's working lives better. It might be about connecting to your stakeholders more. And that isn't necessarily efficient, but it's good practice as a port. So those are the types of things that should be considered in your digital strategies.
Yes, but you are very right that we shouldn't start to talk about technology. We should simply start to talk what is this for. I agree very much with you. Richard, you have presented a very good and comprehensive presentation, but you didn't say much about your organization. Can you say a few words about CSA?
No problem at all. We don't tend to talk about ourselves that much because it's not about us, it's about the topic. But as an association, we're an international association of over 50 members covering well over 50 countries. And there's seaport authorities, airport authorities, port community system operators, single window operators from around the world. That's covering around 500 ports globally. About 10 million TEUs plus go through our member systems. About 80% of EU maritime freight now goes through IPSCA members throughout Europe. Our latest member, which we're announcing tomorrow, is Puertos del Estado, which is the Maritime Ports Administration of Spain. We also already have 5 ports in Spain as members, but we're much more of a family. It's about sharing and exchanging experiences. How do you do this? What do you do? How do you create automated gates? And that's really the advice that we try and help. So though we're an association, we're more of a family group of organizations that help each other to achieve the end goal of making the exchange of information simplified and reducing paperwork in ports, airports and single windows.
Thank you. And just for your information, you may know that there is a company called Polish PSA, which has been established, I think, like 2 years ago. And now they are working with the port community system for Polish ports. So I hope
it's Polski PCS. They're a daughter company of the three main ports in
PTS,
Poland.
yes.
They're actually one of our core members in the Baltic, and they'll be starting to launch a number of their systems. The importance that they have worked on is that there's a lot of background that needs to be done. It's about bringing people together, and a lot of that isn't visible. And I think that's something that should always be considered when you're developing a port community system. Actually, the technology is a relatively small part. The background, bringing the community together and making sure you're going in the same direction is the most difficult. And again, I know from work with Customs and Polski PCS that Customs in Poland has been an advocate of making sure that this can work. And so it's great to see a global practice being implemented in Poland.
Okay, Richard, I think Dorota has one question to you. So Dorota, please.
Richard, thank you. Your presentation was very interesting, but I would like to go back for a moment to the part where you mentioned different levels of digitalization, the port management systems, the port community systems, single windows, etc. I think it's quite important to ask you for a little bit of explanation. What's the difference between those levels of digitalization? Because I think that some of our listeners or viewers today may not be equally familiar with all of those. So if you could just offer a quick characteristics of all of those.
Yeah, so generally a port management information system will be a system that the Port Authority uses to manage its regulatory requirements. It may include accounting for the berths. A terminal operating system is generally a system within a container terminal and sometimes bulk terminals that help manage the automation of the terminal. The vessel traffic management says it all really. It's a VTMS, is a vessel traffic management system. Maritime single window and port community systems are slightly different. And that's one of the challenges. Port community systems and single windows are exchange platforms. It takes information from one party and shares it with another. It's not about implementing a single system to cover everything. It's about integrating and interfacing with those existing systems and potentially new systems to allow the sharing of information between the parties, so that when a vessel arrives, freight forwarders, trucking companies, agents, customs are all aware that that container has arrived, it's customs cleared and it can leave the port. But it can only leave the port once the terminal gives the allowance for it to leave the port and all of the other elements for discharge. And so port community systems are about exchanging that information for business to business and business to government. And single windows are about exchanging that information generally on a business to government and government to government level. However, they are always connected. If we take an example of Morocco, the Moroccan PortNet, the trade single window, started as a port community system in 14 seaports. It now connects all of those seaports, all of the airports, and 28 government agencies through a single window. So you're submitting information once, and it's being shared with all parties that need it. So, and again, the other challenge with providing definitions is everybody and every port is slightly different. So they need to analyze it themselves and look at what they're trying to do. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Richard, I know you could talk for hours about digitalization,
yes,
but we have to go on and we have to finish our day today shortly. So thank you so much for being with us, and I hope we can meet next time somewhere face to face.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Bogdan. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. In fact, this completes our session, but Dorota, would you like to give your view on digitalization? Do you have anything to add?
Well, I must say that this is a very interesting topic for me personally, and of course, I observe all of the tendencies in different regions of the world and various ports. And so I can see that with an increasing amount of traffic in the ports, the general tendency is to turn into digital processing of data, because we all need a greater efficiency in terms of data, in terms of operational efficiency, I should say, operational efficiency, of course, of the port. So we need a lot of tools to make the flow of data safe, secure, and just as Richard said, the data needs to be available for every party that is involved in those processes. So these are all technology issues, of course, and so if I may, I would like to invite all of our viewers and listeners today for our session tomorrow. This will be a second session tomorrow about digitalization only. This will be held in Polish language, so anyone who wants to join in, you're welcome. We will be talking in detail about digital processes in maritime industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dorota. Yes, in fact, there will be another day of Transport Week tomorrow, the day that people would talk in Polish only, and that's very true that the theme of the day tomorrow is digitalization in supply chain. So very welcome to join our sessions tomorrow. But before that, I would like to conclude today a part of the Transport Week. So at the beginning of the event, we have heard a lot about the statistics and the trends in container market. So last year was not that bad, and there is quite a positive signs for the market this year. We have also heard about DCT and how they are going to develop in next years. We also have heard about big projects in Gdynia and in Świnoujście that will be realized in next years. And finally, we have heard about digitalization. Information to share among us. I think one of the main conclusions is that this day was quite optimistic. So we are looking forward for the container market for this year with optimism. So this is, I think, one of the main conclusions from the discussion today. And at the end, I would like to thank again all the speakers and panelists. I would like to thank to Dr. Dorota Książkiewicz for perfect moderation.
It's a pleasure.
It was our pleasure. Thank you very much for being with us. I would like to thank to our partners, Port of Gdynia, City of Gdynia and Pomeranian Science and Technology Park. I would like to thank to DCT Gdańsk and Namiary, Morze, Handel, who will hold the day tomorrow. And of course, thanks to all who have been with us on other side of the cameras on YouTube. Thank you very much. See you next time, and very welcome for tomorrow. Thank you.
zewnętrznego praktycznie podwoi obecną powierzchnię zajmowaną przez terminale operacyjne w porcie Gdynia.
W przypadku takiej inwestycji kluczowa jest współpraca pomiędzy Zarządem Morskiego Portu, którego rolą jest stworzenie właściwych warunków, czy to w zakresie właściwego dostępu drogowego i kolejowego do portu. Z drugiej strony partner prywatny jest konieczny do zapewnienia sukcesu dla tego projektu. Tym partnerem prywatnym musi być światowej klasy operator, który będzie w stanie przyciągnąć do Gdyni ładunki.
Z tym projektem odniesie wiele innych korzyści dla innych przedsiębiorców, dla regionu i dla całego kraju.
Port zewnętrzny będzie miał fundamentalne znaczenie dla regionu i dla wszystkiego, co dzieje się w całym obrębie Bałtyku. Bez takiej inwestycji będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Göteborgiem, będzie bardzo trudno konkurować z Kłajpedą. Musimy być coraz bardziej nowocześni, musimy umożliwiać dostęp najnowszym, największym statkom, jakie pływają po oceanach.
To jest przedsięwzięcie, które tak naprawdę otwiera nową historię w działalności portu w Gdyni. Teraz porty morskie są wielofunkcyjnym organizmem, który oprócz funkcji transportowych łączy w sobie funkcje przemysłowe, handlowe, logistyczne. Jest też stymulatorem rozwoju gospodarki całego kraju.
Jest to olbrzymia dźwignia dla przemysłu i też kolejna szansa rozwoju dla Gdyni.
Gdynia, jak wiadomo, jest portem o strategicznym znaczeniu dla gospodarki. Dzięki bardzo takiej silnej współpracy z Ministerstwem Funduszy i Polityki Regionalnej i oczywiście innymi ministerstwami udało się pozyskać finansowanie na infrastrukturę dostępową od strony morza.
Polityka proekologiczna, którą realizuje port Gdynia, również jest naprawdę godna podziwu. Polityka w ramach idei Green Portu, najnowocześniejszy na świecie i jednocześnie najbezpieczniejszy na świecie system nawigacji statków, który notabene jest również bardzo proekologiczny. To wszystko składa się na jedną całość i uzasadniało przyznanie nagrody dla portu Gdynia i dla jej sternika.
Przyjęcie pierwszego statku to jest mniej więcej 2028 rok.
Poprzez zbudowanie portu zewnętrznego Gdynia wróci do tej idei, do tej koncepcji, która przyświecała inżynierowi Wędzie i ministrowi Kwiatkowskiemu, że każdy statek, który wpłynie na Bałtyk, wpłynie również do portu Gdyni.